Hi friends, it's Sarah with Ruffles and Rain Boots, and today I'm sharing some Christmas bookmarks. Now, whether you want to make these out of wood or vinyl, acrylic, or veneer, you can make these with a Cricut, silhouette, laser, or you can just use this as some inspiration for different crafts. So I'm going to be opening XCS, and I'm going to open the file I created, which is an SVG with 3 bookmarks, and the first is a laurel, the second is a reindeer, and the final is a snowflake design. I'm going to select all 3 of the outside portions. I'm going to indicate those to be a cut on a black layer. And then for each of these others, we're just going to indicate what we want to do. So I'm going to highlight everything, remove that back layer, and then set this to score. I believe blue is score, so I'm just going to set this on a blue layer. For the reindeer, I'm just going to highlight that portion and select engrave. And then for the laurel, you can score it or engrave it. Heck, you can cut it out of vinyl if you would like, which I will be showing you how to do with the X-Tool M1 laser. I'm going to set it as engrave for right now. I'm very curious how it's going to come out. Okay, so we want every one of these bookmarks to be about 2 inches wide by 6 inches tall. So we're just under that with these bookmarks. Now, this is designed for you. Let's create another canvas down here at the bottom and create our own. I have a lot of people asking me how to create designs in XCS. The first 2 are a shape and a vector, and this last one is just a rectangle, okay? So we're going to create a 2 by 6 inch rectangle. I'm going to create a hole. I'm going to center those. Now it's time for the fun stuff. We're going to create designs inside of XCS. I'm going to select everything on this layer first and select cut. And then I'm going to go into the festival section of XCS. You can put any one of these in. They'll come in, I believe, as a vector, and they're going to have, is that a Sasquatch or a Chewbacca? Anyway, they're going to have some fun designs that we can play with. Because I keep getting asked about how do I do designs inside of XCS, especially now that we can export SVGs, I'm going to share. So I'm going to copy this same exact snowflake a few times and change the sizing up. You can see I'm hanging some off of the edges, and you may wonder, wait a minute, I can't export an SVG like that. Oh, but you can. Hang on a second. I'm going to show you how. I would not leave you hanging, okay? So I'm going to follow some basic design principles here, make sure everything's at scale, and then I'm going to set all of these things to score just by highlighting and putting them onto a different layer. Now, how do we get rid of all this stuff on the edge? We don't have an erase function. We don't have a shape builder tool like we do, so we're going to use just a rectangle. You're going to highlight both the rectangle that you've lined up on the edge of the bookmark and the snowflake, and you're just going to select them both. Watch again. I'm going to select them both after I line up my rectangle, and you're just going to come up here and go to subtract, and that's it. And what you can do with this is you can design something in XCS, export it as an SVG, and bring it into Cricut Design Space or Silhouette Basic Studio. So I'm going to add a couple extra pieces. I love this particular star, so I always try and use that when I'm designing in XCS because it's a fun one. So I'm just going to copy that a couple of times, repeat it throughout. I'm also going to incorporate a basic shape that mimics the cutout hole, so that is just a circle. So I'm going to put a couple of those throughout this design as well. You can create whatever you want. You can put somebody's initials, you can put a message, you can do the front and the back as well. All right, so once I've got a little bit of my design, I have indicated the outside edge is cut. It's 2 by 6. This is a little big. So what we need to do is now size our cut out hole for our bookmark. And so I'm just going to highlight it and then come up here to the actual size and change that to 0.35. Now I'm going to center that manually because I don't want to move everything I just did. And now that that's there, I'm going to move around a couple of pieces and maybe add a couple of pieces just to balance out my design. All right, everything is set to score except the outside edge. We also have to prepare our file. So similar to these in here, I know I'm going to have a question on how to design a file with this top rounded edge. So go ahead and save your file because files are not automatically saved. And then you're going to create a 2-inch circle. And then you're going to create a 2-inch by 4-inch, doesn't really matter, 2-inch by whatever inch rectangle. You're going to line up the top of this rectangle with the center of the circle. And ready, I'm going to go too far and I'm going to show you that's too far so you can see the edges sticking out. So I'm going to come back down a little bit till I hit circle. Look at that. Now we're just going to combine those. Combine, unite. Now we have our design. I'm going to go ahead and make sure the sizing is correct. So we want 2 by 6 again. Now we can lock it. I'm going to copy our already sized piece here and delete the vector one that I created. Now this basic shape model you can create with vectors as well. But I'm going to go ahead and highlight both of these and subtract out that overlap. That'll give me the hole, and then that whole piece is set to cut. If you want to make more bookmarks, just copy but set to ignore those holes so everything will be aligned and the same size. But if you forget to delete it, it won't move on your machine. So now let's figure out a harder design. So I will tell you that laurels at the holidays are huge. I tried a couple of ones in the XCS software and decided on these because it looked like mistletoe and berries to me. Now I'm going to copy and paste the same design, flipping and reflecting horizontally and vertically until I like it. Then I'm going to move it over to my base that I made, and I'm just going to size it and mess around with it. And that way I can figure out where I want my design at the top, because I'm going to be ending up putting something here down here at the bottom. So let's go ahead and just put some text. I'm going to use a bold text to see if I like it. There's always two that I try. One is a very bold sans serif text, and one is a very fancy script text. And it doesn't matter, I have 4,000 fonts, but I'm telling you, always try both of them before you decide on either. So I can see that I really like this font, but I don't like the spacing. No big deal. We're going to copy and paste that, take one portion away. So whatever we don't like, we're going to take the EACE from one and the P from another, and then we're going to piece them together. See? Now we can position it whatever way we'd like. I'm going to highlight everything and turn it 90 degrees because I was turning my head 90 degrees. Now I know everything is aligned. I size it. I weld what I can. I grab the P, and you can group them, but I also recommend uniting them. We can group these as well. So that tells the laser to cut all those at once or score all those at once. So now here is my design that I've created. So I'm going to save it. I'm just going to say XCS designed. Now I am marking all of my files this way because I am a designer, and something built in Illustrator is a little bit different, and my node management is a little bit tighter. So I am indicating all of this, but you don't have to. So now that we have our design, we're going to take it to the machine. I'm going to use a 3mm basswood, and I'm going to be cutting on the honeycomb. I'm going to put my machine pin, or my magnetic pins in to hold my basswood, and then I'm going to move it. I choose open plane 3mm basswood, and I auto measure just so I can get the most accurate focus. Once I frame it out, I love framing. You should do it every single time for every single project. And I framed it out. Now I can actually send it to process. It says it's going to take about 5.5 minutes. So I'm going to hit the start button, and you can see this is actually at speed in its scoring. I turned on the air assist at 50%. I turned on the air purifier. You don't need either of those. Air assist is going to help when we cut in just a second, and you can see this is how fast this is cutting. This is real time. I always want to show people because this is a 10-watt laser. It's not the fastest, it's not the strongest, but it does go pretty quickly. This entire thing for 2 bookmarks, scoring and cutting, took 5 minutes and 15 seconds. Now I'm going to leave them in there because I already want to cut the others I designed. So I just pop them on, do the same exact process of framing and cutting. I engraved some, so I put some blue tape over the engraving so I don't smudge it. Then I use some blue tape and always just get the big char off of the edges. I am notorious for running my finger through the char and putting it all over my design. So I try the tape, and then I use a little bit of this microfiber and just make sure I don't pull it everywhere. I get it off of the engraving as well. Repeat the process. Now, if you have any charring, you can take a fine sandpaper or sanding block and just lightly sand. You don't have to go to town on it. Just lightly sand it. You see on this one right here, I have like these little tiny wood pieces, literally 2 passes with them sandpaper, and it's done. I always check all of my edges to make sure they're not pokey, and just realized, aha, you put it in backwards in the machine. But here's another thing. You can use this as a jig in case you want to create these as blanks and then want to engrave them later. You can just keep the thing you cut out. This is my engineered thing, so I can spray all of my sealants, and so it's pins and cardboard, and I'm using UV resistant clear for these. You can use polyurethane, you can use whatever. I'm using 2 coats on the front and back of that. Now, while that's drying, I'm going to create another tab called vinyl. I'm going to create, using my own fonts, I'm just going to create some words. You can use your system fonts. Look up how to download fonts. There's tons. And if you don't like that looks like Noe to me, right? So we're going to change it. Copy, paste, remove the L from one and remove NOE from the other. See, we're going to unlock the L, so go up here and unlock in size, pull it straight up. Now it's going to look like an L. I'm going to align them all at the bottom. Look at that. Now, you can't weld the L with the others, okay? It doesn't come up, but you can weld NOE together, which I recommend, and then you can unite. I'm going to put this in. It's like bring to forward first, and then I'm going to select it all, and I'm going to combine and unite, and now it's ready for your laser or your blade cutter. So I just created another one, and now I'm going to size them. So these are the 2 I'm putting vinyl on. I just measure with a ruler what I want. So I'm going to come up here, leaving it in a locked state at 3.5 inches, and do the same thing for this one. That'll give me 2 similar cuts. I remove my honeycomb, put in the base plate, and add at least 1 screw. I do recommend a magnetic screwdriver because it makes it so much easier. Then I'm going to take the light grip mat, remove the backing, and stick that down onto my base plate. Once that's on, I really do press it down, line it up with the top. I move my air assist hose just a little, and then I remove the sticky paper protector from the top and place down my sticker vinyl or my permanent vinyl. I do tend to brayer this down, but you can also use a tennis ball or just the back of your hand. Make sure it's on there. We don't want it moving. Next up, I use the air assist, which means I remove the blade when I'm using my laser. This is the blade housing. The blade is on this end, so you're going to turn it upside down, and you're going to pop this right up on there. It's magnetic, so it's super easy to pop in and out. Now that I have that, I'm going to choose blade cut from the processing function, and I'm going to choose my material as the sticker vinyl or permanent vinyl. You can see it down here, scroll down, self-adhesive PVC sheet. PVC means we don't want to use the laser, definitely want to use the blade. So again, I frame everything. Says it's going to take a minute, and it takes exactly a minute. Here's a tip, put on both protective covers, remove the front cover and the vinyl at the same time by peeling back the mat. That's going to keep your vinyl flat and easy to work with. I'm going to use a paper cutter just to trim off so I can put all this other vinyl away, and I'm going to cut off my little scrap at the end is just a couple inches, but I will use that. Save those scraps. All right. I'm going to cut this in half and work with 1 for each bookmark. Now, if you've never weeded anything before, the act of weeding is just removing that which you do not want. We are removing this huge outline of all this dead space. We want only the letters to stay on the paper. Now, you are going to have to practice this, okay? So if you're new to this, use a chunkier font. I'm using a very thin font with these joins, And you can see I start pulling up the join between the N and the O. We don't want that, so I'm just going to hold that down with my little pokey tool here. You don't need a pokey tool. You can use a toothpick, for goodness sake. But this is just the process of weeding, and we're just going to remove this entire piece, going slow. This is real time. Got a little stick, I'm gonna hold that there, and that is trash. So now I'm going to remove the inside of each of these letters. So I have a couple pieces here for an L, I have the E and the O in 2 parts. So I'm just going to grab it with a pick, and you can use a sewing pin or a pin pen you can get on Amazon or even Temu. Once you have that, you can use transfer tape or contact paper. I like using contact paper because it won't pull up paint or other things that I work with. So I just remove the sticky part, the clear part from the front, and I'm going to place that directly onto my vinyl. I'm going to use a scraper or the back of your hand, it's no big deal, just to make sure that vinyl is adhering. We don't care about the paper backing because we're just going to flip this over and take it off. Here's a tip about this. Put the entire piece on the table, pull back the paper backing almost parallel and at the same plane, meaning it's on the table and I'm pulling it back. You see? You can toss that paper, we don't need it. Next up, we're going to position our piece. You can do this just by eyeballing it or use a square. So you can use one of these. You don't have to, y'all. You can make a pencil mark and then erase it later. Just whatever makes you happy. I like to tap down just a single portion just to make sure it's all in place where I want it before I brayer or slide it down. So I'm going to be using my scraper, but I really like using the heat from my finger when it comes to permanent vinyl. I think you get a better join and you certainly get all the nooks and crannies. Once that's on, you're just going to pull, again, you're using the contact paper literally on the table, just pulling it back, and that will help keep everything down. Isn't that fun? I'm going to blow through this second one just in case those of you who, maybe haven't done this before. We're going to weed that big outside part. Then we're going to put the contact paper on only after we've weeded out the center of the letters. Flip it over, remove the paper, position it onto your bookmark, press it down, and then remove the contact paper. Easy, right? So I'm going to cut 12.5 inches of ribbon. I used 3/8 of an inch for almost all this, just scraps, whatever you have. If you have thin ribbon, go through the front, just half the ribbon, make a loop, put the ends through that loop. It's called a lark's head knot, and it makes a nice little decorative front. If you have thicker ribbon, like this velvet ribbon, you're gonna go through the back. Again, same knot, lark's head knot, you're just gonna throw the ends right through the center. I will say when you're using the thicker stuff, it works a little better. Hey, guess what? We're all done. This step-by-step tutorial was so easy, and I hope you try it. Let me know down below, what do you think of this? And as always, thank you for being here. Please like, please share this video, and subscribe for more crafty fun.